We're going to go on Daf Mesechtes Bava Kama Daf Nun. We begin on the bottom of Tesma Beis. We begin 12 lines off at the bottom of the Yamid. We move on to the mazik of Bar and qualify we spoke about shiur, and now moving on to the mazik of Bar. Shiur is Kosman V'Chazach and Chazkel turn to Daf Achem, which turns to today's Daf, should be Schus V'Achin B'nei Yisrael and Yisrael, and throughout the entire world. Someone discussed in today's Daf are Chayfa Bar. If someone digs a Bar, so B'Shus HaYachid, if he digs it in the private domain, but a Pasachai, the entrance to the pit, we know like a pit could have a certain length on the ground, but the entrance was in the public area. That's called a bar b'shus harab. If you dig it in b'shus harab, but the opening is a rishus hayachid in his property, that's considered a bar b'shusay, and the Mishnah discusses regarding the chiyuv of that. Now the machlekes Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg regarding the chiyuv bar in the Torah. Now, and there is a machlekes regarding when do they all agree. If you make a bar b'shus harab, no one disagrees that you can be chayiv. Machlekes only bar b'shusay. Then you have a different opinion that says the opposite. Bar b'shus hayachid, everyone agrees that you can be chayiv. Machlekes only regarding bar b'shus harab, as we'll see that it's machlekes in this machlekes of Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg. The halacha bar b'shusay. What is bar b'shusay? If someone's mafker is rishus and not his bar, then he's going to be chayiv. Whereas loy hifka loy b'shusay loy bayroi, then he's going to be patik. It's like torcha b'shusay my bay. What's your ox doing in my rishus that it fell in? The halacha we know is someone takes a bar b'shus harab, an ox or a donkey falls in, your person is going to be chayiv, the owner of the pit. Now, if it was less than 10 tefachim and an ox or a donkey falls in, if it dies, you're going to be patur because it doesn't have the amount to kill in less than 10 tefachim. But if it gets damaged, then the owner of the pit is going to be chayiv. Now, the machlekes Rav and Shmuel that we quoted already previously in this mesechta, Rav holds the chiyuv of the bar is only for lahavle v'lo l'chavate. It's only for the air space when you're falling in and it affects you the foul air that could kill a person. Shmuel, but not for the bang that you get in the bottom because that's not my ground. According to Shmuel, yes, it's the airspace, and for sure the klap that you get is going to be the liability of the owner of the bar. So we begin the current Daf Mem Tesma base 12 lines over the bottom of the Yommi. We continue moving on from the mazik of shiur, which we spoke about for many Daf. Moving on to the mazik of bar. Says the Mishnah, if someone digs a pit in the private domain, so he's digging, but the opening is l'rishus harabim in the public domain. Now, as Rashi points out, obviously, if you dug in the rishus harabim and the opening was to rishus harabim, and then don't say that it's specifically if someone digs in his rishus that it's going to be a bird that has bailim, and that's why the Mishnah is saying that he dug in his private property. But if he dug in rishus harabim, you'd be patur. It's not true because the seifa of our Mishnah, which is on the following Mishnah of Nunim and Beis, says clearly if you dig a bird rishus harabim and an ox or a donkey falls in, you're going to be chayiv. So why? So this that it's saying is just saying a chiddush, even if you dug in your rishus hayachid, but if it opened up into the street, or the other way around. Let's say you dug in the street, but the opening of the pit is in a person's private domain, which is a bar b'shus hayachid. Now, as Rashi explains, Tais discusses this of Rashi, but Rashi explains, then he's mafke his rishus. Why does Rashi have to say that he's mafke his rishus? Because then he could tell people, my bar b'shusi. Why would I be chayiv for my bar? What are you doing in my property? No, because he's mafker the area around his bar, and then an animal falls in to the bar. That's what the Mishnah is telling us, that he's going to be chayiv, because this Tana holds that the chiyuv of bar is whether it's in rishus harabim or in rishus hayachid, as long as you're mafker rishus. So then, even though it's in your rishus hayachid, you're going to be chayiv, even though it's your privately owned bar, because you gave access to people to fall in to that bar. Says, or one more case, rishus hayachid b'sachal rishus hayachid acher. You dug in your private domain, and the opening is to another rishus hayachid, where even though there's no element of rishus harabim at all, not where you dug it, not where the opening is, that's the third case, still chayiv, you're going to be liable, again, as long as you're mafker that rishus, meaning the one where the opening of the bar opens up into. Which Taisa points out that the klal of this Mishnah is that the bar goes based on the opening of the pit. It's as if the pit is over there. So even though the pit was dug along wherever the other area is, wherever the opening is, that's where we're going to focus on to see. And the Tana of our Mishnah holds that, yeah, you're chayiv for bar b'shus hayachid, bar b'shus harabim. Doesn't make a difference, whichever one, as long as you gave access. Again, that's the way Rashi explains it, that then you're going to be chayiv. So says the Gemara related to this halacha, the Mishnah, the Brisa, that hachayfer bar b'shus hayachid. Someone digs a pit in his private property, ubesachai l'rishus harabim, and the opening of the pit is in the street. Now, since this takala is in the street in Rosh Hashanah, it's like as if you dug it in the street, like we're saying, because that's where the opening of it is. Says the Brisa, okay, chayiv, you're going to be chayiv, and v'zehu, and this is very important, the words, v'zehu boi rama b'Torah de Rabbi Shmuel. Says Rabbi Shmuel, and this is the pit that was said in the Torah. The Gemara later on is going to explain what's zehu, but he's saying basically a bur b'shus harabim, where the opening is. Again, we don't care that you dug it in Rosh Hashanah, where the opening is. That's the bur that's said in the Torah. Kiva Aimer says no. If someone digs a pit in his property, he has this huge fields, he's not doing anything with it, he digs a pit, and then he's mafker the whole property around the pit. But it wasn't mafker the pit. So he owns the pit. Oh, that's the bar that the Torah is talking about. So we have machlekes Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, but what is the bar that the Torah is talking about? We have so that's what we're going to get to it right now. And now we have machlekes Amayudraim, how to qualify the machlekes Tanoi. So Omar Rabbi says, first he lets you know what everyone agrees about. But bar b'shus harabim, when you dig a bar in the street, no one's going to disagree. Not Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva. Everyone's going to agree. The mechayev. What is the chiddush of what Rabbi is saying? So Rashi explains. Rabbi Kiva agrees to Rabbi Shmuel in the bar that you dig in the street, which is mentioned in the Torah. But Rabbi Shmuel does not agree to Rabbi Kiva. What Rabbi Kiva said regarding a bar b'shusa when you make a pit in your own private property, because he holds that, yeah, I was mafker my rishus, but not to be liable for the damages of because I was mafker. So he holds that, not like Rabbi Kiva, that you wouldn't be chayiv for a bar b'shusa. But Rabbi Kiva agrees, Rabbi Shmuel. Everyone agrees, bar b'shus harabim, that's you would be chayiv. My tell what's the reason? So on that, Rabbi explains, Amakra. You want to know where the sources. So regarding bar b'shus harabim, the pasuk says in Shemais, Ki yiftach, it says that if a person is going to open up a pit. Oh, it says v'chiyichra, or if he's going to dig a pit and he doesn't cover it, oh, he's going to be chayiv. So the question is like this: Ima pasicha, if for just opening, where someone else dug a pit and covered it, and this guy just uncovered it, chayiv and Torah telling you liable al kriya lekoshkin. All the more so shouldn't it be for digging? Which Tosfos brings that. That's the whole discussion. Do we say unshim and adin?
It was covered part.
It was covered.
Covered it, and someone else opened it.
Yeah, that's what Torah says. Ki yiftach.
The original Baal is
What's the original Baal? The Torah is telling you two things: either if the person uncovered a pit, as this chart shows here, or he dug. So if you tell me by uncovering you chayiv, why would you mention about digging a pit? I mean, if you chayiv for just uncovering, you have to tell me that you chayiv for digging.
The language of digging a pit.
No, but why do you need it? The Torah says two things: ki yiftach or ki yicher. If I told you a guy's liable for uncovering, I got to tell you a chayiv for digging. If it's just uncovering, for sure digging. So that's what Tosfos actually brings. That this is the well-known machlekes regarding are you unshim and adin? Maybe it's a kabel chaymer, but who said? In other words, yeah, but still the Torah tells you even something that's a kabel chaymer. Okay, but our Gemara makes it sound like that as if you had a kabel chaymer, you wouldn't have to say that. So why am I mentioning the ki yichra? Because I want to teach you the following thing. Shal iske b'sicha val iske kriya ba'aloi. Meaning, like Rashi explains, you don't have a portion and the rights invested in this pit. It's only for the digging or the uncovering, which is in the street when the property is not yours. So in other words, according to what the Rabbi is saying, is why the Torah is telling ki yichra is to say that for the idea of digging, and the Dafka said extra words because if it said uncovering, okay, it might have been your own property. Ki yichra is to say it's for your digging that makes you chayiv. What is digging? It's because you own it. No, you don't own it. It's in the street. That's what the pasuk is teaching by the extra word ki yichra.
Why say ish? The word ish?
Could be. I'm joking. I don't know. It's why does it say ish? You have to know cotton. Maybe cotton. Yeah, it's a good shayla. You have to know. Yeah, you have to know why the Gemara elsewhere sometimes mentions why it says ish versus a cotton, maybe, but or versus some other. No, we said why ish b'lei sharbar. We said the ish is to say that only when you make a pit, not when your ox makes a pit. Al kapanim, but. So that everyone agrees, says Rabbah, that you're going to be chayiv by b'shus Rabbah, because that's what the extra words ki yichra is coming down. Iske kriya, you don't own it; it's for the act of digging. But machlekes is regarding a pit in your own private property. Rabbi Kiva holds by b'shus. Yeah, you could be chayiv in the pit in your own property. Meaning, like we explained with Rashi, meaning that you mafka the rishus, and then people have access to it. Because if not, then you could say turcha b'rishus in my boy. What are you doing with my property? But how do you know this? Because the chesed, it says in the pasuk, Baal Habar. It says that the owner pit's going to have to pay. What is Baal Habar? It's Babar de Islay Bailam Kamrachman. Torah is telling you a pit that has an owner. In the street, you don't own the pit. So therefore, you see, says Rabbi Kiva, that obviously that you could be chayiv in the Bar B'Shusay. How? By being mafka the rishus around it. The Shmuel Sabi holds, no, it's not a raya. The Baal Habar, it means the Baal Atakala, the one who made the stumbling block, and it's in the street. But his own private property, even though it's mafka, it'd be put, like we explained. Why did Rabbi Kiva say, says Rashi, when you said the case of Bar B'Shusay, that you mafka only the rishus and not your bar, because if you mafka also the bar, that is a Bar B'Shus Rab. So that everyone would agree to. Kiva's chiddush is, according to the way Rab is explaining, that even when you're not mafker your bar, so it's a bar b'shusay, you can be chayiv. According to Bishmol, no, you're not chayiv for bar b'shusay. That's the machlekes according to Rabba. But now the Gemara has to explain. Each one said zehu bar. This is the bar. So the Gemara says like this: Elamai zehu bar amabatar dekam Rabbi Kiva. What does Rabbi Kiva mean when he says this is the pit? As Rashi explains, I could understand when Rabbi Shmuel says zehu. Zehu is a miyut, exclusionary to this. This is the pit. Coming to exclude Rabbi Kiva, because Rabbi Kiva says you chayv even by b'shusay. Shmuel says sorry, not chayv by b'shusay. But according to Rabbi Kiva, what are you coming to exclude? He holds that it's bar b'shusay and bar b'shusay Rabbi, because we just told you that Rabbi said everyone agrees to that case. That's the bar ha'ama b'tayra. So what would Rabbi Kiva be meaning when he says this is the one? So he explains the Gemara. What he means to say is that it means also because zeu bar. This is the bar that the pasuk opens up when it talks about monetary payment, as Rashi explains. A bar that has an owner was said by the monetary. There's two times it talks about the bar when it causes damage, and talks about when the payments. Okay, now you got to pay a bala bar yishalom. The first thing it talks about it's really the only thing, but when it talks about the guy who has to pay, it says baal habar yishalom. So it says Rabbi Kiva, hey, how could you say that you're not chayiv for bar b'shusay? This is the bar that it mentions regarding monetary payment, the state bal habar. Now, bar b'shusay of kiyiftach kiyich, that was said regarding the actual damage itself. Like it says, when he's going to open up, he's just trying to say it doesn't mean zeu excluding something else. What Rabbi Kiva is telling Rabbi Shmuel is, why are you exempting a bar in a person's own private property? But this is the bar that's written by Tashlumin. Because it says, Baal Habar Yishalim. Baal Habar seems to indicate that there's an owner. And how could you say, therefore, that you're not chayiv for a bar in your own private property? That's what he's telling you. Now, this was all one pshat. That was Rabbi's pshat, that Evan agrees by Bar B'Shusay Rabbi, Machli's on Bar B'Shusay, and Rabbi Shmuel Zehu is excluding Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva Zehu is saying, no, this state. So how could you exclude it? Rabbi Yisrael, he says the opposite. He says, no, he disagrees on Rabbah. He says, Babar b'shusay yachid, a pit in your own private property, kulam le'payid mechayiv. No one's going to disagree. Everyone agrees that you're going to be chayiv. My time, what's the reason? Because balabar marchmana. He takes the same thing that Rabbah had used for Rabbi Kiva, and he says, no, everyone agrees. It says the owner of the pit is going to have to pay. But this is the balmaskina. We're talking about a pit that has owners. Ki peligi, the whole machlekes is babar b'shusay rabim, a pit in the street. Rabbi Shmuel Sabi he holds, Rabbi Shusay rabim nami chayiv. You chayiv also for a pit in the street, because the chesed says kiyiftach v'chichere, which is imal psicha chayiv, you're liable for opening. So al kriya l'koshkin isn't all the more so for the digging. Vos das mezogin for the digging. Elishal iske psicha val iske kriya b'olay. It's going to tell you it's for the act of uncovering, for the act of digging, that you don't even own it. Oh, so that's Rabbi Shmuel holds you can be chayiv bar b'shusay rabim. And Rabbi Kiva, no. He says not true. It's not extra to teach me this idea al iske kriya, and therefore you're going to tell me that you're chayiv for bar b'shusay rabim. No, you're not chayiv for bar b'shusay rabim. So why does it say kriya if it already said psicha? Hanu mitzvah tzrichi. It's necessary. So I could tell you that the pasuk's talking about bar b'shusay yachid, and you are mafkir your rishus and not the bar, which is therefore your mammon, like all the other mazikin. That's mazik, you own it, and therefore you can be chayiv, because that's baal habar. But in the street that it's not your mammon, you're going to be potter. So then what do you need to have these words ki yichra? Say like this. Very interesting. He gives you a reason why. because the ikatz rachman kiyif had the Torah written only when you're going to open up. I would have thought to say if all you did was open up someone else's pit, yeah, it's enough to just cover it. I would have thought when you dig a pit, it's not enough just to cover it at the time until you actually stuff it up and fill it up with earth. So I needed to tell you kiyichre to say that just like opening is enough to cover, so too is digging. He's not. That's hagufa. That's exactly the. It's a good point. He's pater because you see the only one who opens up is the one that's chayav. It's obviously the one who originally dug it is actually pater. Now, because Rachmana, but if the Torah had written kiyicher that when you're going to dig, I would have said kriyu de kisui. Yeah, when you dig, you have to cover it. Shem David Maisa because he did an action. Said when you just opened the lobe Maisa, you didn't even do an action. Interesting that they were saying such a thing. But like, if all I did was uncover, I didn't dig a pit. I would say maybe you don't have to even cover it. Interesting, Havamina. Kamashal, that's what I'm saying. You have to say kiyicher. One to say that it's enough with covering, and one to say that you even actually have to cover it. So therefore, according to Rabbi Yosef, this is the machlekes regarding boy b'shas rama, if you're chayiv or not. Do you learn that the word kiyicher is an extra word or not? Says Gemara, okay, be'elamai. Now the question becomes, zehu bar rama b'Torah the Rabbi Shmuel. When Rabbi Shmuel said, this is the bar that said in the Torah, since according to him, both of them are written in the Torah, both bar b'shas, which everyone agrees to, and even bar b'shas rabim. So why is he saying zehu if he's not excluding the case of Rabbi Kiva? So it's the same thing we said in Rabbi's approach for Rabbi Kiva. Is similar to what we were saying for Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Shmuel. That this is the pit that the pasuk opened up when it started talking about the damages. Meaning, when it spoke about the bar b'shas rabim, the pasuk opened up originally when it spoke about the damage. It says v'tnafal shamashar chamar. That's a bar b'shas rabim that the pasuk talking about because it says ki yiftach v'chayircher and v'nafal, which is that we're saying that it's just al iskei kriya according to Rabbi Shmuel, but al iskei psicha that you can be chayiv for, which is Rosh Hashanah, not like Rabbi Kiva. Now, if you can ask, then who is the Tana of our Mishnah? So says Rashi, Rabbi is going to explain the Mishnah like Rabbi Kiva that holds you chayiv on both, and Rabbi Yosef is going to explain like Rabbi Shmuel holds you chayiv on both. So we have machlekes amiram regarding what does everyone agree with and what do they disagree at. But according to Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef, the Tana of the Mishnah is going to be the opposite Tana, who's the one that holds of both, because we said the Tana of our Mishnah holds yichai for bar b'shus sai and Rosh Hashanah and for bar b'shus ram for making one in the street. But Meisvah, the Gemara asks on Rabbi Yosef in the following brisa. The brisa says achai for bar b'shus ram. Someone digs a pit in the street, but again, we don't care where really the guy dug. It's upsachai. Where's the opening? Was l'shus hayachid in the private property? Putter, you're putter if the animal falls through the opening in the person's private property. Now, this is really where the question is from. The assumption of the Gemara is that even if he's mafke his reshus, he's going to be pater as long as he held on to, even though meaning the bar is his own private bar. But if let's say the covering that he covered it, the piping that he covered in Rosh Hashanah became uncovered, then yeah, he would be chayiv because this Tana holds the chiv of the bar is b'shus harabim, but in Rosh Hashanah you're going to be pater. Now, says the brisa further, although you're not allowed to do this, why are you not allowed to do this? You're not make a cavity beneath the street. Some might cave in, but okay, Maisa, you did it, and the opening is in Rosh Hashanah, so you're going to be pater. Continues the brisa. If someone dug pits, cisterns, caves in the private property, but it opens up into the street, so then chayiv you're going to be liable because, like we said, it goes based on the opening, which is in the street, and this time the holds your chayiv for bar b'shus rabim. Continues the brayso. Now, if someone dug pits in a private property, that's near the street, like those they dig like foundation for the walls of their house along the entire width of their house near the street, pater, he's going to be pater because that's also like digging a pit in your own private property, which there's owners, and it's like being mafka yereshus, where in other words he can't tell the victim what are you doing in my property. He also can't say why'd your animal go on the edge because that's the street, and that's the chiddush that we're saying. Even so, that the owner of the pit is going to be pater. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Mechayiv says no. Regarding if you're digging these ditches along for the foundation of your house, right along the street, you're going to be chayiv until you make a partition that's 10 tfachim, or unless you distance from the place where people walk, from where the animals walk, you have to be at least a distance of 4 tfachim. Okay, but time of dilution. This is the Gemara is first saying that it sounds like that the reason why you're potter is because it's leushin. Like Rashi says, that's normal for people to do this foundation. You're not considered negligent. Halav leushin, but it sounds like if it was not leushin, chayiv would be liable. So what's the point? So like Rashi explained, so you see that a bar b'shusai, which is essentially what it is, when you make a pit in your property and you mafka the rishus around it, that's essentially what this is also, because it's here at Rishus Ram right on the border of that. We said you'd be chayiv. Well, that's a difficulty of the ratio to the sefer, because Hamani, who's the mission? Who's this brisa going to be like? Because it's a contradiction. The brisa opened up by saying that if you make a pit where the Pesach is in Rishus Yachid, even though, and the Gemara is assuming that you mafka the area around it, you're going to be potter, which is bar b'shusay potter. And yet the sefer is saying that you'd be chayiv if it wasn't leushin, which is essentially the same. It's bar b'shusay, and it's right there with the Rishus Ram right around. You'd be chayiv. So who's the time of the brisa? So the Gemara explains. Bishlam l'Rabba, and according to Rabba, you could say it's different tanoim. The opening halacha that said that when you make a bar b'shus, you're going to be potter is Rabbi Shmuel, who again Rabba had explained that Rabbi Shmuel holds that you only chayiv for bar b'shus Rabba, not for bar b'shus. And the sefer that says you're chayiv because we made the diuk. If it wasn't leushin, you'd be chayiv. Is Rabbi Kiva, who holds that you're chayiv for bar b'shus. Great, you would have to say it's a machlekes hanan, but you have some way of explaining it. El Rav Yosef, according to the second Amoira, who he had said that when you make a bar b'shus, that's the case. Everyone agrees that you are going to be chayiv. The whole machlekes was regarding bar b'shus rabim. So I don't understand. Bishlam is safer than Rakol. I understand the last case of the brisa goes according to everyone that a bar b'shus you're going to be potter. El Reisha, but the Reisha, which is saying that you're going to be potter. Mani, who's that like? Loi b'shmal Rabbi Kiva. According to Rabbi Yosef, everyone agrees a bar b'shus is chayiv. So that was what the Sefer was saying, but the Reisha that says you're going to be potter, it's not like anyone. Some of Rabbi Yosef would tell you, no, Kula Dibya Kolhi. The whole brisa is like everyone, which Chase says doesn't mean the whole brisa, it just means the Reisha and the Sefer that we're asking from. The middle case, which actually said that if you dig into Rishus HaYachid and you open to the street, you're going to be chayiv, obviously is only like Rabbi Shmuel, who holds that you're chayiv according to Rabbi Yosef in Rishus HaRab. But he means the cases of the Reisha and the Sefer, that could be like everyone. How so? So he explains, you made an assumption, which is not correct. The Reisha is that we said that you're going to be potter when you make a bar b'shusai. He said everyone holds you chayiv. No, that Shalei Hifke did not declare on was not his property and not his pit. So then the owner of the pit could tell the victim, says, what was your ox doing in my property? Usually we say chayiv bar b'shusai because it was mafka the rishus around it, so people come, you can't say why was I there. But here, yes, everyone would agree that you would be potter. So then Rashi's Bada says, so why do we have to say such a chiddush, such a case? The guy has he has a sauna in his backyard, whatever, and some guy trips in it and he says he wants to sue him. What do I have to tell you that he's going to be potter? What are you doing in my property? No, we have to say it because even though he's not allowed to do it, because if you recall, the case of the Reisha was that he was actually digging underneath the street. He opened it into his private property in the middle of his yard. But you're not allowed to make a chol tachas rishos rab. But since he opened into his own rishos, therefore we're saying he's going to be potter. That was the chiddush of that case. But again, it could be like everyone, so it's not difficult on Rabbi Yosef. Now, Amr Avashi says, Hashdu de Kim to Rabbi Yosef. Now that we explained the according to Rabbi Yosef, I called that the brisa could be like everyone. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Namalek took with the Tanoim. Rabbi was the easier one originally. We said we found a way for him to explain it, like different Tanoim, but we were difficult with Rabbi Yosef. We explained, no, Rabbi Yosef could even be like everyone. So says the Gemara, you know what? Says Rav Ashi, now we can even explain Rabbi also according to not a machlekes Tanoim. You could say it's with one Tana. Meaning, you could say, Rabbi Shmuel, and the fact that Reisha is Rabbi Shmuel, who, again, Rabbi Shmuel is the one, according to Rabbah, that held the bar b'shus you're going to be potter, because Rabbi Kiva holds according to Rabbah that you're chayiv. So you could say, Rabbi Shmuel, say it was also Rabbi Shmuel. But you told me, but Tamin de Leushin, you told me the only reason why you're potter is because the Leushin, halav Leushin chayiv, but you made the dig, but if it wasn't Leushin, wasn't these foundations, you would be chayiv. It's bar b'shus, and according to Rabbi Shmuel, you're potter. No, it's going to arvachi l'shus rabim. It's where, for example, if a guy set aside place from his property to the Rishus Rabbim, where it's like digging a pit in the Rishus Rabbim, because you actually gave away your property and like you're digging it in the Rishus Rabbim. That's why, only because Leushin. But it wasn't Leushin, you'd be chayiv, even according to Reb Yishmael because it's almost like digging a bar b'shus rab. The Gemara says Meisiv. The Gemara continues asking on Reb Yosef in the following brisa. Brisa says a chayv bar b'shus hayachid. If someone digs a pit in the private property, but again the main thing, like we said, is where it opens up into b'sachal b'shus rab, and it opens up into the street. Chayv is liable as bar b'shus rab. B'shus hayachid hasmuchal b'shus rab. Let's say he digs in the private property that's near the street. For example, let's say he sets aside place from his property for the street, which that's like the case of being mafkir yirishus. Oh, so then again that's bar b'shusay. Then potter, then you're going to be potter. So the Gemara explains now again, according to the Machlekes Amaram, who is the Tana of the Brisa? Bishlam l'Rabba, we understand according to Rabba called Rabbi Shloimy, because again he said that you're chayiv in Shus Rab, but you're potter in Shus Yachid. Fine. Rabbi Yosef, how do we understand this? Bishlam Reisha, and the Reisha you could say it's even like Rabbi Shmuel, because again everyone holds according to Rabbi Yosef that you're chayiv in the Shus that you're going to be chayiv for, meaning Rabbi Shmuel holds that, meaning Rabbi Shmuel is the one who holds you chayiv in Shus Rab. And the Seifa Mani, who's the Seifa? Lo Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Kiva, because everyone, according to Rabbi Yosef, holds Yichayv in the Bar B'Shus Yachid, and he was saying that you're potter on the Bar B'Shus Yachid. So he would tell you that the reason why you're potter in Shus Yachid is because b'chayfa le'ushin. That's exactly what we just mentioned before. When you're digging your foundation, and that's a Divrei Hakol, because that you're allowed to do, and that's not considered as a pshia. But if you're digging stam a pit, then you're right. If you dug stam a pit and the Rishus Rabbim is right around you, like let's say we mafkir Rishus, then you're right. Then according to everyone, you would be chayiv. Continue on the related themes. Chafar Pasach. If someone dug a pit and he opened it, umasal Rabbim, and he gave it over to the community, meaning he said to his city, he said, "Look, this pit that I dug, you guys need it for drinking, for rainwater that gathers over there, and it's fit to give to your animals to drink. I give it over to the community. I did it, and I'm an askin, and now you guys could have it." Pater, he's pater, because it's not his liability anymore, it's the community. Chafar Pasach, let's say he dug and he opened it, but and they didn't give it over to the community. He's like, hey, so it's liability because it's his own private pit that he made. And this was the custom of Nechunya, who was chayfa bir shich and aris. He would dig pits, cisterns, and caves for those who were oile regel that were traveling on the roads. He would dig a pit, he would open it, and would give it over to the tzibur. And when the sages heard what he did, they said, this one, meaning Nechunya, fulfilled this halacha. So like he only did this and nothing else? No, he's not a one mitzvah wonder. He doesn't only do this, but doesn't show up to this and doesn't show up to that. No, I mean, even this halacha of giving over to the community is what he fulfilled. So, related discussion, the well-known Agadah to Gemara, the Gemara brings, turn about in the Brisa. There was a story with the daughter of Nechunya, the one who would dig the pits, that he mamish made it for the oil regalim, that they could have what to drink on the way up. She fell into a big pit. They came and told the great sage Rabbi Chanina ben Daisa what happened. So Shari Shaina, the first hour, when, or you have no Shah means hour or time, whatever, but that she was still able to live in the water. Amlam Shalom, he says, peace. Don't worry, she's going to come out. Shnia, in the second hour, Amlam Shalom, he says, peace. Shlishis, when there was the third hour, where that's enough time that if she was still there, she would have passed away. Amlam also, he said, she definitely came out of the pit already. As Gemara is going to say later on, it was obvious to him that she wasn't going to die over there. So she actually did survive. And Amrullah, they told her, Mihelcha, who took you out? Amrullah, she said to them, Zachar shel Rachel nizdamali. There was a male of the sheep that I encountered, which, as Rashi explains, was the ram of Yitzchak, of the famous Akedah story. And there was an elderly man that was leading this ram, who says Rashi that was Avram Avinu. So Amalei, they said to Rabbi Chanina ben Daisa, Navi, you're a prophet. How do you know that she was gonna survive? Amalei says to them the famous words, He says, I'm not a prophet, I'm not the son of a prophet. But this is what I said. Something that this righteous person is in pain. He's the one who digs the pits for the oil regalim. Yikashal by Zarai, that his children should stumble in and something bad should happen to his children and something that he's asking in. Not possible, and everyone knew she's going to survive. In spite of that, the Gemara tells him, even so, his son died from thirst, which is the irony where you're telling me that he digs the pits and gives the water for the whole tzibur, and his own son dies from thirst, because Shneimar says in the pasuk in Tehillim, "Usviva of those who are around him nisara ma'od." It's very turbulent. But the drasha of this word nisara is Malamach HaKadosh Baruch Hu medaktik him sviv. This teacher HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so precise with those around him, meaning the tzaddikim who connect with him. He's so precise with them. I feel like chut hasayra, even like a hair's breadth. So the word nisara ma'od is a term of chut hasayra. So here, even though he was the big tzaddik and he would dig pits, even so, he was probably 1 centimeter off, 1 millimeter off, and that therefore Hashem punished him. His own son died from thirst. Or a different pasuk, he brings a pasuk in Tehillim. Kel Naretz, the dreaded God, beside Kedeshim Rabba, in the secret of the great holy ones, his awe is on all those who are around him. Meaning he imposes awe and his judgment on those who are around him. Now Taisa brings, if that's the case, how did Reb Chanina ben Dosa know that his daughter wasn't going to drown if his own son died from thirst? Says Taisa, no. The pit itself that he makes, she cannot die in the pits that he makes. Not having water, he could die. But in the pit itself, and Taisa brings in Yerushalmi that there was actually a malach in the form of Reb Chanina that actually she encountered. So maybe it was Reb Chanina's his own, if you know what it means, a malach b'dmus of Reb Chanina, but that's who's the one that took her out of the pit. Now, I heard.
There had to be a combination of
I heard. I mean, it sounds like what Taisa brings from the Yerushalmi, that it was like the malach was in the mus of Reb Chanina. Now the Gemara continues related to this idea that like Hashem's justice is very, very precise. Amar Reb Chanina says, whoever says that Hashem is forgiving and he's easy, he's hard to translate. How do they translate vatran? Probably hard to. It's disregarding, not engaged, or different, not engaged, disregarding. Yeah, whatever. It's because it's Hashem obviously is a Rahman, but vatran is vatran is, I mean, like to just look away, to like, you know, about their sins. Yivatri chayev. So then his life becomes also, you know, looked away and just hefker, and because he's basically telling people to sin. Hashem's a loving God, and don't worry so much, whatever. So people say, yeah, no problem, you know, I'll sin, you know. So Yivatri chayev. Shemach says the Dvar Matzur, the rock, Tamim Pa'aloi, his actions are complete. All his paths are judgment. I mean, don't think for a second that you're not going to be judged for every iota like we see for what a person does. What does it mean the pasuk in Shemais as you continue to Amid Beis that God is Erech Apayim? He's the long one of the faces. Now, why are you saying in the plural? We always say Erech Apayim. Looks of Erech Af. Shouldn't it say that long face? It sounds like that he holds in his anger and he waits from punishing. Erech Apayim sounds like two wills, one of good, one of bad. What's Erech Apayim, the long one of the faces? So says the Gemara, yeah, Erech Apayim l'tzadikim, he's slow to anger for the righteous, meaning from paying them the reward right away. He holds in his will, so not like punishing, but like he holds it back. Ulu and for the wicked, meaning from punishing them right away. So Hashem holds himself back. He's holding himself back. He's marach av of not to reward the righteous right away and not to punish the wicked right away. Now Taisa actually asks, it sounds like from two different Gemaras, when Hashem is marach af l'Yerushalm, one sounds like it's good, one sounds like it's bad. So it says Taisa, it depends. If the person's not going to end up doing tshuva and Hashem's not punishing him right away, that's bad, because that means to say that, meaning he's going to get all his punishment in the next world. But if he's going to do tshuva, well, not punishing him right away is actually good. It gives the guy a little bit of time to be inspired and to do tshuva, so it actually could be either one of them. Then we'll learn the Braisa. Again, going back to our main topic now from our previous Mishnah, Boy B'Shus Rabim, says the Mishnah, Lo Yisakal Adam. A person should not clear away stones. Mishusai L'Shus Rabim. You know, guy, you have this all the time, people are blowing their leaves, people are shoveling their snow. You know, so don't take your rocks from your own property and throw it into the street. And the Gemara brings a very interesting story. The Braisa says, there was a story with a person, so he was clearing out his stones from his property to the street. One pious person finds him. Amalei says, empty one. Why are you clearing out the stones from a property that's not yours? Meaning, because you might end up selling this property. to the property that is yours, because the street is always everyone's place. So Ligligalav, this guy was laughing at him. He didn't recognize the rationale of this chassid. What he's saying, he said, "Meshugana, what do you mean? This is my property. I'm throwing it to the street. Who cares?" Liyamim. It was days later. The nitzach limka sedeyu. This guy had to sell his field. He was walking in that same street. And he stumbled and he tripped on those stones that he had cleared out into the street. Amar said, "Yafa, how nice, how appropriate is what this pious one had told me. Why are you clearing out the stones that are not from a property that's not yours? The property is yours." That's how it is with Hasidim, meaning that you don't understand what they're saying. The Gedalim, you say, "Wow, what are they saying with technology? What are they saying with about being quiet? What are they saying? This is my property." No. Liyamim, you find out. Like this week's parasha with Yosef, like we think we're so confident, we think we're so right, and turns out we weren't. Says the Mishnah Vayter, continue with the Mazik Bar. Someone digs a pit in the street, and an ox or a donkey falls in. Okay, that's the classic biblical case. Again, depending which one is the biblical case. Right, Machlekes, Rishus Ram, Rishus Yachid. Our Tana held of it both Rishus Ram and Rishus Yachid. Chayiv, you're going to be liable. Now, Echad HaChayv, for this is whether if someone digs a bar, which Rashi says a bar is round, whether you dig shiach, which is long and narrow, or ma'ara, which is squared and it's covered, it just has an opening. Charitzin, which are wide and square like a cave, but they're uncovered. It's the whole opening is open. V'ne'itzin, which are narrow on the bottom and wide on the top. Any one of these types of pits, chayiv, can be liable. You can limit them a bar. So I say bar. Oh, because that's teaching you ma bar, because like Rashi says, stam bar is 10 tvachim. That's how they knew this. Which Taisa elsewhere explains what does that mean? How do you know that? Whatever. But ma bar, just like a pit shesh begedei lahamis. Yeah, that's how much the bar would be made. No Gemara. Just the Mishnah is telling us that a bar has a shear of that it could kill, which is asar tvachim, which is 10 tvachim. So that's why we pick a bar to tell you, of course, shesh begedei lahamis asar tvachim. So to anything that has enough to kill, meaning if 10 tvachim, then it's going to be chayiv for having killed the animal. Now, if any one of these pits were less than 10 tvachim, 10 handbreadths, and then the ox or donkey falls and dies, a pot, you can be pot because it didn't have the shear. But if the animal gets injured for that, it did have a shear, and then you can be chayiv. Now, the Gemara brings a teaching that's going to relate back to halacha of the Mishnah. We have a critical machlekes between Rab and Shmuel. Amar Rab says, the pit that the Torah holds you liable for is lahavloi. Is because you made this airspace of the pit. And that falling in that airspace is actually what you created, and that's what your liability is for. But not for the bang, for the smashing into the ground, because that's not yours, and that's not what you're going to be liable for. So says the Gemara, Al Maksaba, obviously Rab holds Chavata, because the bang is Karka Olam Damaskale. It's the ground of the world. It's not his ground, so you can't be liable for that. What you did, what you created, is the hevel. Shmuel says, no, lahavloi, it's for the ear space that the Torah makes you liable, like you said, even though the ear really comes by default, which is also, you didn't really make the ear really, you just took away, it was like Malach Hashem Zik Lagufa, like you took away the ground. But for Koshkin Lachavate, for sure, the banging of the ground, because you made that ground was not accessible until you made it, that you made. Now, I'm going to say, maybe it's only Lachavate, so you're right, maybe you're only liable the pit for the bang and not for the airspace, because you're right, that just comes by default, and he didn't really make the ear. No. The Torah testifies that there's a liability of a pit, and it just says pit without specifying. So that would sound like that would sound like that even if it's full with tufts of wool, that there's no bang, if there's cushions in the bottom, they would still be chayiv. Oh, so therefore that must be lahavloi, because no chevet. And the VC says, Shmuel, that's lahavloi b'choshen l'chabat, it's actually both of them. Says Gemara, my benayu, what's the difference between them? The difference between them, ik benayu is the avid goiva. If you made, meaning the reason why the Gemara is asking my benayu is because when the animal dies, both according to Rav and Shmuel, you're going to be chayiv. Whether the animal's belly splits open or its spine cracks, you can be chayiv according to Rav too, because you could still say the hevel is what killed it. Even if it breaks a leg and it gets weak, you could say it's because of the airspace of the bar that it got weak and got sick. So who cares if the reason is because of the bang or because of the hevel? Either way, because you would have thought, says Rashi, that, oh, that's because of the bang. He says, no, that could also be from the hevel. So what's the difference between them? Make a is the Ovid Goiva. You made a mound that's 10 tefachim high. That's how Rashi says. So he says a little bit differently. Interesting that you made it 5 tefachim high and then you made 5 tefachim deep. But come on, Rashi says that you made a mound 10 tefachim high, Bishos Ram in the street. An ox goes up and falls down. Oh, there's no hevel over here. It's the same ear that's always been here. You only have the bang from the height falling down. So the Rav, I'll give a mechayiv. According to Rav, for the height you're not going to be chayiv because there's no hevel. The Shmuel, according to Shmuel, give a mechayiv. You're going to be chayiv also for the height because you still have the chevet. It was created by the one who made the mountain. Okay, says my time the Rav. What's the reason of Rav that says the chiv is only for hevel, not for chevet? Because I'm a crow. Says the pasuk says in Shema is benafal. It says benafal shama sharchamar, and there the ox or the donkey falls in. So what's nafal? It says Rashi actually derech nefila. He has to fall the way people normally fall. How do people normally fall? People normally fall first of all into a depth, not for a height, and on his face. That's how you fall forward usually. Oh, so that's hevel. That's the ear that's affecting you when you're falling down. Well, the Shmuel, according to Shmuel, the nafal is kol mashma. No, any type of fall. You can fall from a height, you can fall backwards, and which you're not going to have hevel. And either way, you're going to be chayiv. Says the Gemara asks on Rav, it's not from our Mishnah. Now, this is why it comes back to our Mishnah. Said in the Mishnah, we said, wait a second, if you're chayiv for bar and all these different types of cases, so why are you saying specifically bar? He said, oh, to tell you, my bar, just like a pitch, has enough to kill, which is 10 tefachim. Of course, also anything that has to kill, which is 10 tefachim. Says Gemara, according to Shmuel, afkol, when it says also anything, is lasuye goiva. What's that coming to include? It's coming to include the height. That afkol, anything that has this 10 tefachim. According to Rav, afkol lasuye, what's afkol coming to include? Says the Gemara, lasuye charitzim and itzin. Says the Gemara, charitzim and itzin. Those are explicitly mentioned in the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, yeah, Tani, we learned in the Mishnah charitzim and itzin, and then Mahad Mefarish, then we explain. What do you mean we explain? So Rashi tells both explain. It means where do you know it from? What do you mean? It said the case before afkol. So he's saying it's coming to explain. Usually it's the opposite. You say something and then you explain what the cases are. Here you already said the cases. What's afkol? Someone say avkol mina the way you learn it from, which is from bar. Okay. Says Gemara, why did the Tana of the Mishnah have to say all these cases of like to say they're included in bar? Just say a bar. Okay, who cares? It's square or round or whatever. So the Gemara says no, they're necessary. So the Gemara explains. The bar had we only said bar, I mean I would have said bar sarhu des behavla. Yes, a bar that has 10 tefachim has this havel mishum the kat no kricha. What happens is a bar is narrow and it's round, and that would create very affecting a negative ear space. Of a shtiach the arach, which is long, I would say no basar les behavla. That even if it's 10 tefachim deep, it doesn't have this havel. Every time the sheikh had said sheikh, I mean I would have said sheikh asaro des behavla. Yeah, there it has havel from diktin because ultimately it's still narrow, even though it's not round, even though it has length. But a cave which is squared, I would say that no, 10 tefachim does not have havel. And the man had said a cave, I mean I would have said ma'or basaro des behavla. Yeah, a cave that has 10 tefachim has havel. The metal because it's covered, so covered area it gets dingy. Av charitzin, which is wide. And the loy metali, and it's not covered. I would say even if the 10 tefachim does not have hevel. Vitan the charitzin said charitzin. I mean, I would have said charitzin asar dis behavla charitzin. That's 10 tefachim has hevel mishum the less be revicha melael tfeim tatoy because it's not wider on the top than it is on the bottom. Aval the eatzin, which the revicha melael tfeim tatoy, where it's wider on the top than it is on the bottom. Masar less behavla. I would say even 10 tefachim is not going to be hevel. Kamashlan, we have to say even over there it's going to also be hevel and every chayv in all these cases because it could kill with the hevel of 10 tefachim. The Gemara says it's not. The Gemara asks. From our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said if it was less than 10 tefachim, and the ox or donkey falls and dies, parting me pater. Said them who's boy because it's less than 10 tefachim, it doesn't have enough to kill. But if it gets damaged, then the chayiv is going to be chayiv. So the Gemara says, wait a second. You said if the ox or donkey falls and it dies, pater when it's less than 10 tefachim, the owner of the pit is going to be pater. What's the reason? Because la mishum deles bechabata, isn't it because it doesn't have a bang? Meaning, the Tais explains, but it sounds like that even though there is hevel, because what's the difference, airspace or whatever. But a bang is okay. You didn't fall from such a height. A guy falls off from 1 story, 2 stories. So that's difficult according to both of them because both of them agree that hevel is going to be a liability. But why you pater for the animal having died less than 10 tvachim? Says let's be havla. It's because there's no hevel. Of course, there's no chevet, but there's no hevel. Like Taisa explains, the Gemara thought there's no difference between hevel of 10 tvachim or not. No, because no hevel. Says if that's the case, wait a second, no hevel. You said it, if it's their injury, even less than tvachim, let's say 7 tvachim, you're going to be chayiv. Oh, let's be havla. I thought you said there's no hevel. Says no. They said ain't hevel lemisa. There's not enough airspace for death. But there is airspace for damages, meaning the animal could become sick because the hevel and get weak, but it will not be enough to kill. So if it does kill, it's not because of your pit, but it could be enough hevel for the injury. Gemara brings a story related. There was an ox that fell into a. Okay, I guess we'll finish over here. Didn't you finish? All right, finish.